Hello and welcome to Tea in the Dojo. This is episode 11, and today we are talking about the code of the karateka. We had a great comment and question from a student from our last episode, and he asked us about the code of the martial artist. And because of this, I looked at the Dojo Kun, and me and Chris discussed some of the rules and the tenets of that, and just discuss further the concepts that goes into. So thank you for the question, and please keep them coming. This is the last episode that me and Chris will be doing with using Skype as our the way to talk. I'm in my last week of quarantine, of like self-quarantine because of the coronavirus. So I wasn't actually able to meet with Chris physically. So again, we had to use this in order just to keep it going forward. So please excuse that. However, it is enjoyable to listen to still. I hope you enjoy it. Please get some tea and enjoy. Hello and welcome to Tea in the Dojo. I am Sensei Jumoke.
And I am Karate Kid Chris.
Karate Kid Chris. With the headband on, I think it looks wicked.
Oh yeah. Repping Japan.
Yeah, man, hard. And you said to me earlier that you were learning Japanese now.
Yeah, so I can tell you that this basically says Nihon in kanji in Japanese, which is I think that's sun and that's origin. So land of the rising sun. And
sure,
I think Nihon is still used in other Asian countries as well.
Yeah, that's wicked that you can speak it. And it's cool because I can read it in Chinese as well, Ruoben, which also has the same meaning, sun rising. Okay. And yeah, it's wicked.
Yeah, it's good. It's actually way easier than I thought it was going to be. So I've only been studying for a couple of weeks, but I've booked in holiday to Japan later this year. Yeah. And I want to go over there and have a conversation with someone, with more than one person, hopefully. So I thought a fully fledged conversation, or at least go into a restaurant, ask for a table for two, ask for my order, know what I'm ordering, read, recognize things on the menu. But yeah, it's at first I thought it would be difficult, or a lot of people think it's difficult because you've got this whole new alphabet, which is not an alphabet, it's a syllabary as they call it, and then you've got two sets of those, hiragana, katakana, and then you've got your kanji as well, which is over 2,000 characters. But because it's completely new, it's actually easy in a way. So it's not like when you learn French or German and you're trying to fit English into another country's language. You basically got to start from the ground up. So
that completely change your thinking, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And you must have had the same thing learning Chinese. Like some of the stuff you come across as well sort of makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's
more. It makes sense of how.
The conversational piece sort of, I feel like that comes afterwards as well. But as far as reading basic symbols and stuff, I'm getting there. But there's, like I say, there's over 2,000 to learn. But I've been using mnemonics, which is a method of learning where you just apply an image to the character. So you'll have a character that, so the character for sun, for example, is a sort of like an upright rectangle with a line going through it, and so you can picture that as the sun and the horizon going through the sun. And so you look at it and you go, oh right, okay, that's fine. And then the symbol for origin is the symbol for tree with a line going through the bottom, so that's sort of like the root, the origin, as it were. So that's mnemonics basically. So it's almost like a cheaty way of learning it, not by the book, but but it works so well. Like I've learned so much in a couple of weeks.
When they first made those characters, if you look at the ancient, it actually looks like what they were drawing though. So it's based on the picture of the real thing anyway. I'm not sure if Chinese people have the same association to the picture as maybe we need, because they use it and they learn it in different ways maybe. But yeah, for sure, it's all based on pictures, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But then even the ones that don't look like what they when at a super
Yeah,
simple level.
concepts put together though, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which together make a bigger, more complex concept, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
but it's cool though. It is like I say, because you're learning something from the ground up. You feel like you make a lot of progress straight away, and then even you notice the same sort of patterns in every language. Every language, sorry. So a lot of questions. So most questions, I think, in Japanese end with ka. So at least if you're listening to someone and they ask you a question, rather than listen
yeah,
for listen for cat at the end of it, and you go, oh
yeah,
right, okay.
that's it. Yeah,
And just simple things get used over and over again. And one thing I've noticed, I don't know if it's the same in Chinese, but rather than saying, oh gosh, it's really cold outside, you just walk outside and someone would say the word for cold. They'd just be like, oh, cold. So it makes it
yeah,
way easier to understand
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
a Western perspective. I don't have to listen to a complicated sentence and listen for key bits of words. Someone's going to say one word to
Uh,
describe how they're feeling or what they're looking at.
yes, you're right. Yeah, they don't have they cut away a lot of the small words that you don't really need, and they just say it.
Yeah.
You're right. In Chinese, they'll often start conversations with statements. Oh, you're going out. Oh, you're returning home. Oh, you're eating food. Like that would be like an opening statement, just a statement, an observation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Should we get into social media?
Let's do it.
Yeah, that was a good little introduction. I'm happy for the Japanese. I look forward to the progress. Um, yeah, we have the Instagram. We're on YouTube. We got Spotify and Apple podcasts as well. I believe we're on Stitcher and Google Podcasts as well.
Yeah.
Comes,
Anywhere you find podcasts, we are there.
yeah, and if you just search for Tea in the Dojo, you will find us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, what tea are we drinking today, Chris?
I've got some green tea that I I don't get to have very often because you have to sort of put it in the little strainer and stuff. So basically, as I'm leaving for work in the
Mm,
morning, I don't get to have it. So it's a bit of a weekend treat. But it's just green tea from Japan, in a
okay,
glass, and I've just put a bit of lemon juice in it. So it's
okay,
delicious and amazing.
interesting, interesting. I'm also drinking green tea, and it is some green tea that my student of mine gave me actually, and it's very nice. I'm drinking it in my favorite Mrs. cup. Um, but yeah, that's nice. I don't often drink green tea too much actually. However, this particular, I've been good with the water. I haven't been um, scorching it with boiling hot water, and it's come out really nice.
Yeah, yeah. I've sort of found that if you're still making tea the old school way like I am, which is boiling a kettle, just to leave the lid off and open for a good sort of minute or two, and your
Yeah,
tea tastes like 10 times better. Life hack.
yeah, for sure. Cool. So I wish I should have brought up the packet just to show everyone, but I think we have drunk it before actually on this show. Yeah, cool. So what have you been doing? What's been happening this week?
Yeah, not much karate, unfortunately. Ankle's still a bit dodge. It's been a
Mm,
bit. It's been about 2.5 weeks since I hurt my ankle, but seems quite. My sort of benchmark is if I can jog down the street, then I'm probably ready to get back into karate.
hmm
But at the moment, that's not the case. Unfortunately, it's still a bit off, still a bit weak, and still a bit bruised even. So for me, not much karate, sadly. But
Have you
um,
been able to do any other kind of exercise or recovery that period?
Um, not too much, unfortunately. The only thing I can do is like anything from the waist up, basically. So I can sort of practice, my sort
Mm,
of katas and that sort of thing from the waist up
okay.
if I need to. But even, I don't have to walk a lot in my job, but even a little bit of walking I'm doing every day. By the time it hits the weekend, it's a little bit sore. So I see it as active recovery, but I don't know. Hopefully it's not doing too much damage.
I guess it is good to keep it moving somewhat, and as long as you're not like seriously like straining it each week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it still needs to to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, not much work every day.
Yeah.
Started a nutritionist course because I like learning about food, and thought it'd be useful, and sort of keeping myself busy in learning Japanese as well. And actually, it's helping. I know karate doesn't equal Japan, and Japan doesn't equal karate, but it still feels like there's a connection there at least. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the dojo.
Okay, wicked, good. Yeah, you're keeping that spirit alive, aren't you? In the way you can.
Yeah, exactly. But
Sure.
what about you?
Well, I cut my hair when I came back from China. That was the first thing, which is probably the first time in like five years, maybe 4 or 5 years. First haircut, so it's quite big, and it's a big change to my appearance as well. So it's like, yeah, you know, my wife said I look like a new person. She doesn't recognize me. It's weird.
Do you feel like a new person?
Um, Man, I've been in this I've been in the quarantine for 2 weeks since I've been at home, so I haven't like seen my mom and I haven't seen my dad even though I've arrived back from China. Um, and yeah, it's a bit it feels quite like in some ways like stale. Just I have to be inside. There's a lot of restrictions. I want to be doing, karate is such a big part of my life, and I can't go out and do that, and it feels very like restricting. I have been able to focus on doing like other things. However, again, like you, it's like I'm trying to keep the spirit alive. I've been working on like my black belt leadership course. I've been working on the website for Zenshin, like a new one, which has almost killed me, but yeah, I'm still going. Yeah, it's looking better now. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's all right though. It's all right. But yeah, that's what I've been doing mainly.
And when are you back in the dojo?
So Monday,
Nice.
that is just a couple of days. Yeah, yeah, that'll be like 20, uh, 14 days since I come back. I feel fine. And that's the worst thing. It's like I've had this time and I feel fine, and I want to help my brother and my family and get back to karate and teach. And I have to be here.
Yeah.
But it's obviously for the benefit of the students and just to make sure, because you won't want to pass it on to anybody. So it's some of that has to happen, but it's a shame that it does.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm slightly envious that you're getting back to the dojo, and I'm not. But I'll see you there soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll start warming up for you and get the cobwebs off. But yeah, but I've been able to focus on more stretching and doing like different types of exercises. So I haven't let my body go, but it's I wanna do some sparring. I want to do a good kata and not have to keep moving back and move furniture out of the way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It's okay. I've been trying to make progress in other areas and changes in my life. Yeah, that will happen. Yeah. Cool. So we had a great question from Daniel, who is a fellow black belt and someone I've been training with for a long time. He's a student of, I believe, originally Sensei Pansy, and then my dad, and then he's, some trains on my lessons sometimes. And he's been with the club for a while. He's a great karateka, a good person, and he asked us a great question. He commented on one of our videos. He asked, as a martial artist, do you have a code you live by or are trying to uphold?
That's a great question, man. That's deep, but it's interesting because there are codes in martial arts, aren't there?
Are there codes in life?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's funny you say that. I've just finished reading a book called Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and it basically codifies, or the author attempts to codify what it is that makes an extraordinary human being, and it actually does it really well. The author himself, I think, got diagnosed with Asperger's later on in life. He's got this a sort of mind that really is beneficial for things like coding, programming, that sort of thing, and so he tries his best, and it turns out that you can do quite a lot. You can codify a lot if you try really hard and know where to look. So I think it's the same sort of thing with martial arts as well. But I think you can, but it depends on the result you want.
For sure. I mean, you can see like religious codes and political codes, and football codes and codes within every kind of small group of people. They have their own kind of like worldview, morals, and values that go with it. I guess, what is there like a correct code, or is there the most common code is the correct one? Is the code of the karateka, is that even the best one to have for everybody? Or is it only for a select few of people?
I think if we leave it up to fate, then the code that we follow is put on us by the culture and society that we're brought up in, and that's perhaps not always the most beneficial. And so when you start to touch martial arts, you realise that there's a slightly different code, such as being humble, but then also being courageous, and that maybe shows you that there's a better way of living than the current way. When I say living, I mean living in the culture and society that you live in. Not everyone is humble, and it feels like not many people are humble most of the time, and also the same thing with being courageous as well. So it's a good start at worst, if that makes any sense. There's a code of being a karateka anyway.
Okay, sure. I feel like having this code is it's an optimistic way of seeing the universe, of trying to uphold good and order in the world, and it's like a positive worldview of that the way that you are acting and perceiving is good, therefore trying to create good and spread good around.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. I think the only downside with a lot of the codes you might read into to do with karate and other martial arts is simply that they're quite broad, and so people may not know how to follow them specifically. And everyone has their own definition, but I think that can put people off. So people, I like having rules to follow if I know that they're good, but telling me to go away and be a good person is different to telling me exactly what that might look like in real life. And obviously one of the benefits of being human beings is that we have survived through adaptation. So what was considered to be good and courageous and humble 50 years ago or 200 years ago or even longer is different nowadays. So I think it can also mean a different approach.
Okay, it shifts over time, yeah, for sure. Well, should we have a look at the first thing I looked at to really answer this question was they call it the Dojo Kun, the rules of the dojo. There's like 5 main rules, and we have them in our dojo on the back wall, and they're written down, and we could just go through them and see if we think these are good ones to live by, and if they could be universal to many other codes.
Yeah.
The first one is each person must strive for the completion and perfection of one's character.
Yeah, I feel like that's a constantly improving. That's quite broad. I think people can take their own meaning from that, but that's I think perfection's quite a scary word, in that I'd be hesitant to encourage someone to chase perfection necessarily, but more look at continuous improvement.
I think that's a better word, isn't it? Can never be like content with just being okay at something. You have to always constantly try and get better in as many things as you like want to, really. Because I think trying to be completely good at everything is impossible. Not all of us are suited to do, different jobs. I wouldn't be a great basketball player. However, I don't need to follow that path of perfection. I can try and do something else. And I think we all have like, different things we're good at, and to try and get better in those things to really make ourselves, different to each other.
Yeah.
More true to ourselves.
Yeah. But I think it's a good starting point. I think for someone who has never really been aware of how society and culture might give them those sort of rules and that code for living. If you're going to give someone a brand new code and put it in really simple terms, like, try and be a good person, try, strive for perfection. I think
whatever you do it good, do it well.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you're a bricklayer or work in an office or you're an IT techie, just do it good. That's like a first start of becoming, better, higher value, person. That's for sure. The next one is each person must be faithful and protect the way of truth. Be faithful and protect the way of truth. So that's like justice, really.
Yeah.
Be fair.
Yeah. I one big thing I take away from that is the faith bit. So I think
Be faithful.
I think with a lot of things. So I've been sort of, say, vegan now for a little bit, and with any endeavour you take part in life, of you sort of need to be faithful that you're going to get results. I feel like a lot of people's problems or past failures that they regret are because they have not trusted in the process, if that makes any sense. It's a bit like karate. I purposely signed up for 4 gradings knowing that I maybe would go for, it's not uncommon for me to go try something new and not trust that it's going to take years and years to be really good at it, and so I get frustrated. And so the faithful bit for me is quite pronounced. Trust is a big one.
Yeah. Again, being optimistic about the future as well in itself.
Yeah.
I think someone that's always pessimistic all the time, it's hard to put faith in anything or in themselves when everything is. But where if you believe, I'm going to stick at this and I'm going to spend 4 gradings now and commit to doing it and put faith in myself and in this company and in this school. Through that faith, I guess that allows you to like propel yourself forward.
Yeah, and even with today's a prime example where I've been out of the dojo for a while, and so have you. And I had an injury, which means I've not been able to go for 2.5 weeks. But like you say, if I'm optimistic about that, I can see that instead as well. Actually, I've had more time to learn Japanese, and I have benefited in other areas. I haven't wasted that time. I haven't squandered it. And it's allowed, I might be able to read parts of the Dojo Kun when I get back into the dojo, sort of thing. There's no, I've got to trust that although something could be perceived as bad has happened, I've got to trust that actually it's for my own benefit in some wider way, which sounds very sort of, higher power and that sort of thing. But I do trust that that's the case.
I guess, I feel the same with the quarantine. Like, maybe I could have rushed back and been to karate, but maybe if I had faith, there could be reasons why I'm here now to spend the extra time working on other things, which I wouldn't usually be able to get this amount of time off from not karate in usual circumstances. So it's been a time for me to work on other things and develop other sides of myself. So cool. To protect the way of truth.
Yeah, that's a difficult. I feel like that's the I don't know. That's a tricky one, because from the karate do kyohan, that's to me that's the sort of justice part of it. It's to simply, make, if you see something going on that shouldn't be going on, do the right thing. But again, that's outside of the dojo. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know the full truth, do you? When you see a situation, and you might get yourself involved off of interpretations and miscommunications, and that's when you're passing judgment on something that you don't really know the full picture about.
Yeah.
So it's in the way of truth, like who knows what really is true or right.
Yeah, or it maybe in sort of modern times, I guess, if you know someone is perhaps a bit dishonest, or you hear something that isn't necessarily true, and it might not have a direct impact on you but directly impacts someone else. How do you do it? Could be a work situation, school, could be anything. If you're put in a situation where you hear something that isn't true, do you always protect the way of truth? Is it literal truth, or is this the truth of the way of karate?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you could definitely stand up if you do. You could definitely call it out, couldn't you? That would be like an instant way to protect it, but also just upholding the truth and just living by that. Surely is a way to protect the truth, because you're not you're not ever doing anything against it, because you're always trying to live true. If someone says something bad about you, rather than trying to tell them, show them.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next one. Each person must endeavour fostering the spirit of effort. So that's basically almost trying hard all the time.
Yeah. I think it's I think that makes sense. I think that should almost be rule number one in a way. That should be, I'm sure that you as a sensei, simply you want your students to try their best at the end of the day, and I think that encapsulates other rules as well. I know for my son, who's very young, he's almost 2. Generally speaking, you hear a lot of parents say, I just, at the end of the day, I just want you to have tried your best, and that sort of thing. I think that's quite a big thing, that if you're going to pick one rule out of all of those, that might be the one for me personally.
Yeah, for sure. It's to reach your potential, isn't it? By putting in your effort.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And the interesting bit is fostering the spirit of effort.
Yeah.
Foster the spirit, to be able to almost use it when you need to, in order to be the most efficient.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the importance as well is there's no focus on the end goal, as in that it's almost like it's a focus on the process. The spirit of effort is the journey, as we say. It's not about the end. It's about the journey to get there, and it's that same sort of encouragement. Which I think a lot of people probably. Everyone must struggle with that at some point in their lives, and it's nice to come back to it and realise that it is about the journey, and being in the present rather than worrying about the future and where that's going to take you necessarily.
Yeah, for sure. The way I'm picturing it is like the spark that gets the engine running. Is that spark that gets it going? Is the spirit? Is the spirit we must foster trying to constantly be able to get that spark. That I think that getting a spark to get the engine on can be the hardest thing sometimes, and that's the thing that we need to practice doing and being able to control.
Yeah, I think there are two words that I believe stem from Zen Buddhism as well. You might be able to correct me, but there's Kensho and Satori,
Okay.
and Kensho is the growth through pain, which a lot of us experience, but without being aware of it. You know, if I go to a class and realise and I perceive that to be like a bad class, I just felt like I was rubbish, whatever it may be. If I'm not, you know, this concept of growth through pain, all of a sudden I can come home and go, well, at least I grew through pain in some way. The pain was there, and therefore I must be growing in some way. And that's also a, you know, although optimism is a big thing, even if you're slightly pessimistic, it's okay to be pessimistic, because you have, as long as you believe that through the bad things, the good things will come, I suppose.
Yeah, cool. The next one, number 4, each person must respect others and the rules of etiquette.
Yeah, the etiquette's a massive thing in the dojo, isn't it?
Sure. Yes, in the dojo, and I'm thinking in England we're quite a polite nation anyway, and we have our own a lot of etiquette in the way that we manner ourselves and how we interact with other people. And I feel like that's like tradition. Etiquette is like tradition, a commonly agreed way to interact with people. Is it to me that's like keeping the harmony, and not really like doing anything to disrupt it.
Yeah, I think what you say about Britain being quite polite and etiquette being quite important is, since I've been looking into Japanese culture as well, I realised we sort of pale in comparison to the Japanese, which is very interesting. Obviously, most people know that etiquette's a big thing over there, but when you know, taking your shoes off and putting slippers on to go into someone's house and not, you know, you will get shouted at. Going into the bathroom, and you will get shouted at if you start speaking to someone on the phone whilst you're on public transport and stuff like that. And even, you know, you go to more rural areas where I watched a video where this guy went to sort of like, it was a big open park area, like play park almost, but very big, and there were just go-karts in this little garage. No one was manning it. It wasn't locked. It was just open, like tiny little pedal go-karts. And it's at the end of the day, that all stems back to etiquette. Like there's an expectation that you aren't just gonna take it and break it because you feel like it, and you feel like no one else should have it but you, and that sort of thing. So that's almost like the next level up. It's quite fascinating, but you know, that sort of reflects in the dojo for me, is that it's ultimately etiquette that creates a good impression on people, and I suppose you as sensei as well.
Yeah, no, it does. It definitely creates the best attitude, the best environment and attitude to learn. If we let's put the faith in Sensei to teach, and if we're all like upholding that etiquette, that's where you get the most positive interaction between student and teacher in that way. At the start of this rule, it says that each person must respect others, and respecting others for me is treat others how you would like to be treated, basically. And for me in karate, I always remember, you know, like when I'm sparring with someone, and the idea that if I hit someone hard, I'm saying that they can hit me just as hard back. And you quickly learn to give out as much as you can receive in karate, because otherwise you're going to get either too much, or you're going to end up hurting someone, or you're going to get hurt. And you learn to work with everyone at like a good level to create to create a good interaction.
Yeah. How do you adjust that? Because obviously, as adults, I would say that's one thing we are pretty good with in this country. Is we generally people are respectful once they reach a certain age. However, so there's a lot of young kids at Zenshin. How do you teach the kids to respect others?
Yeah, well, in class we reinforce things, always just treating everyone nicely. We bow into them. Also, in the manner in which we practice, being physical with each other, attacking and blocking, it's never done in that way of like, I'm trying to hurt you, I'm being nasty. It's always in a way of like trying to work together with someone rather than it's I'm trying to beat you up. That makes sense. So when they're getting physical and they're fighting, it's not through a state of anger or fear. It's through a state of like a cooperation between two people, if that makes sense. And I think that's what trains them to not necessarily want to become more aggressive, because they've trained that part of them to be out of respect.
Yeah.
that we reinforce in the class.
Yeah. No, and I see, and I suppose in that case, you must have students who are new to the organisation who probably struggle a bit with respect, coming in thinking that karate is a bit more about malicious intent than it actually is.
No, because I think even though that might have malicious intent or think that they're good or hard, they'll still get like whacked up by people they wouldn't expect they would be able to, just because they're not really willing to learn, and they haven't like opened their mind to learn something new. They're just thinking from their perspective, and it's quite funny how you can teach. They couldn't move out the way of a kick. And then you'll have I remember in one of the classes having a girl who's been doing it a year or two, and she was doing a really nice kick bang to this new person who what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that it's crazy what you can teach some people to do that you wouldn't expect, and through giving and taking through the physical, it's where you learn to respect each other, because we've all got quite a lot of potential once you have the right education. Yeah, sure. That was a long-winded one. Yeah. Last one. Each person must refrain from hot-blooded behaviour. Okay, this kind of went into what we just said. Guard against impetuous courage. Hot-blooded behaviour. That's emotional behaviour.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I imagine that's a tricky one to control within the dojo, because you do bring your life with you, sort of thing. So as I've been, so it's only slightly relates, but as I've been doing my nutrition course, it touches on a lot of the emotional aspects, and says that the only thing you can really do as say a nutritionist is advise that they look at the root cause of where those feelings come from. So there's not much you can do, but do you feel like there's much that you can do as senseis to help people refrain from violent behaviour if that stems from things that are external to the dojo?
Again, I would say when people do feel hot-blooded, it's usually that anger, and it's usually they want to get physical. That's what it would lead to. And in the dojo, we're again, if they're angry and they want to get physical, we're in a place where we're training them to control that physical energy. So it's not a case of them just lashing out in their bedroom and hitting things, and they're just practicing their gidamburais, their oizukis, or if they're working with someone, they're working in a controlled way. So it never becomes malicious. And I think if you're putting that that habit of being able to be physical but in a controlled manner, I think that's going to create like the right kind of I want to say like memory for the long term in your life.
Yeah. What about how do you deal with ego? Because I feel like as adults, ego is still quite a big thing. It might even get worse in adulthood. So do you ever see ego being an issue between people in the dojo, and that the causing violent behaviour?
You do see it with everybody. You have to. It is a hard one because everyone's on their own like level, and you're constantly trying to work everybody off each other. Um, I think I heard it could have been some kind of MMA fighter say, how you might have a big ego when you get like in a MMA ring or whatever, and that completely like would destroy your ego. So I think people with big egos, they just end up having to like get their ego brought down, don't they, through doing things.
Yeah. No, I sort of, like I say, I think I have this sort of picture of society as a whole, and probably a lot of fights, disagreements and that sort of thing are probably stemmed back to being scared of something, and also the ego taking over, like, I'm bigger than you, how dare you talk to me like that, and that sort of thing. So, and I think it's still in our culture, at least in this country, it's almost cool to have a big ego sometimes, or can be perceived that way. So I think it's quite important to know how that links to violent behaviour. And I think in a way it's maybe okay to have an ego as long as you realise when that's taking over. If like you say, you push us as students, which is great, so you might have me at one level and someone one step above that, and we get on really well and we push each other. However, if that person then overtakes and starts to get a bit of an ego and realises that they're pulling ahead, have you ever seen that in the past happen, and has it ever been a problem?
Yes, it can be, but I think again, there's always, just because you have a big ego doesn't mean that you are better than anybody else, and I think you can still like think you're better than someone else, but there's someone else not worrying about who looks good against who, and there's always someone that's working hard on themselves just to be good for themselves, and they'll end up outshining this person. So they might look good against you for the moment, but if that's all they're worried about, they're not training with the right intention to be good for the right reasons, and I think in the long run they won't be as successful.
Do you also, just to finalise, do you think it's something that affects guys more than girls? The ego and the violent behaviour, I would say, because like personally from what I've seen, there's nothing I would really call violent behaviour within the dojo, but obviously violent behaviour, physical violent behaviour, is more a characteristic of males in wider society.
For sure. To be honest, we don't get. I would say we have a problem with people being violent. To be honest, in class, from what I see, kids outside, yes. Is it generally boys? I think that's how it comes across, or is expressed in boys. I think girls might be express it, just maybe not typically in a physical way.
Yeah.
We were talking about it in class, and I think me and my brother were talking about, I can't exactly remember the topic. Remember the girls saying that, the girls, express their emotions just through, talking, and maybe there being a little bit of gossiping and stuff, where the men might be a bit more upfront, and maybe it comes from the same emotion, but it's just being expressed differently. So, I guess both sides are equally like negative, maybe.
Yeah. No, so I guess to close then, the violent behaviour, maybe that because I think of violent behaviour, I think violent, swinging my arms around, behaviour, you know, but maybe that there should be a sort of careful consideration with how that extends to the psychological aspect and not just the physical.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you know, the bullying and all this, and gossiping and then ganging up on people. It can be quite, you know, not physically hurting you, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's a good question. I think in we've just gone through the five, and you said you like the spirit of effort. That was your favorite. I think for me that is that is a great one. I'd probably like the first one about just the completion and perfection of one's character. I think for me that probably encompasses like everything.
Mm.
So is there any extras like on top of that that you could say that you like try to live by? Maybe I could go first, but like for example, if I would go out with my dad when I was younger, I would always like look at how he interacted with the world, and he's quite light-hearted and respectful, and it was always like we were on watch because everywhere he would go, he would meet people that he knew him, that trained with him, whose son or daughter trains with him. Everywhere we go, it's crazy, and it's like we were constantly. He constantly represents himself as like a karateka. They all know him through the karate, and through him, he might be the only karateka they know, or maybe he knows, or they know a few. But my dad wants to represent karatekas in a positive way to everybody because that's how they know him. So when I feel like I go into the world when I'm out of quarantine, like everyone that's looking at me is looking, even though if they don't know, I'm a karateka, and so I have to represent what that means.
Yeah, I think that's I was going to just say that, you know, it's almost like a combination of one or two of the rules. So there's no mention of the word sort of kind, but being kind and loving and caring to each other is sort of it's like the respect combined with the endeavour as well. So always trying, but I think for most human beings that a gut feeling, you know, like I say, my favourite one was each person must endeavour. So try hard, try hard to be better. And for most of us, the gut feeling is being better is looking after your neighbour and keeping a watchful eye on people who need help. And I think I've done things in the past where I've it's a bit like the story of the Good Samaritan. I've sort of walked past a situation that in retrospect I probably would have benefited from helping out that situation in some way, and there's always that sinking feeling afterwards, always that sinking feeling. Then you don't realise until afterwards that there was I was too scared to look like helping out or something like that. And I used to see there was a couple of times when I was living in London where I remember one specific time I was waiting at a traffic lights, and a guy on a scooter sort of got shoved by a car, basically came off his scooter before the guy had even stopped moving on the floor. Like a couple of pedestrians started to run out to him. The lights were red, so it wasn't totally dangerous. They'd obviously considered that, but I personally hesitated, and I remember that and thinking like, oh man, like I shouldn't be hesitating. Like, I shouldn't have hesitated. I should have gone to help. I want to be that person.
To go out, to be courageous.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if there are 1 million enemies, you shall go.
I go. Yeah. So, but again, upon reflection, it was probably that I was a little bit scared. I thought, well, even if I run over to him, what am I going to do? Like, I don't think I don't know what I need to do in those situations. It probably stems back to knowing just a bit of basic first aid, and that's easy to learn. So those sorts of things are important. I think for my son specifically, if I wasn't going to tell him to always try hard, I'd say always try your hardest to be kind, and trust that that's the way that life will take you. And you might see other kids being cool at Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say put positive karma back into the world, and
Yeah.
hopefully that will come back around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, be kind and trust that that's the way forward in, especially in this day and age, because it can be so easy to succumb to peer pressure and what's cool, and you know, whether it's having a certain body type or doing a certain thing, a certain activity, whatever it may be, do it with kindness. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, I think that would be a nice addition. I think if you, it might not be something, it might not be a word that is synonymous with karate necessarily, but I would say when I go to the dojo, and when you go to the dojo for the first time, hopefully you experience kindness, because I certainly did. And it was what is making me want to come back time and time again as well. That's a big part of it, really. You know, if it felt cold but I was getting good teaching, there'd be that weird disconnect, almost like you're doing a job that you don't mind, but it's not what you were put on this earth to do. So yeah.
Do you know what? I've had that feeling when I did some classes in China with I did some Thai boxing and some sanda. Some of the teachers I felt were cold. They like you said, they don't want to be there. It's just a job to them. And I remember, like, I don't want to be that kind of sensei. Thinking in my head at this time, like yeah, it was a good class still, but I feel like every class I'm teaching, I want to be there. I'm having a great time, and I want you guys to have a great time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know, I really know what you mean. Yeah, they're not being kind to themselves or their students. They're just kind of doing it. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, I think we've covered a really wide range of topics. I think we've done quite well. Thought a bit too deeply into maybe some of them, but it's a good way to start, isn't it? Just to try and get some perspective on the bigger picture.
Yeah, no, I think you again, we seem to keep running into this problem where a lot of the rules and texts that are written for by old karate masters, they are they are quite broad, and so and that's fine. It can sometimes be a bit tricky not to go off the path, but of course we both have different experiences, and I'm sure everyone listening has different experiences and perceives what that might mean. But so it's, I don't think you're ever going to get a perfect rule set or a perfect code through which you live to be a great martial artist, because everyone has a different definition of what a great martial artist is. And so it's important to just have a few basic rules like that. Always try hard, don't be violent, and so on and so forth.
For sure, I agree. Wicked. So I come out of quarantine in like 2 days, so we'll be able to meet for the next one, for real in real life, Chris.
Can't wait.
It would be great. We can do a proper. I didn't manage to go to the tea market in China, because it was closed, but I did receive a couple of pu'er cakes.
Oh, wonderful.
So we'll open one, and we'll have some pu'er, and it'll be beautiful.
Great. Can't
Yeah.
wait, man.
And yeah, we can hopefully do something special. Yeah, that's wicked. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for being here and listening and watching. Again, we're Tea in the Dojo, and you can find us on all the social media platforms. You just have to search for a watch, listen, or to check out what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Anything else to say, Chris?
No, that's it. That's been a great episode. Please throw us more questions as well, because that came from Daniel, and it's a really really good question as well. So please, if you got any little ones, big ones, whatever it may be, we'll answer them. So yeah, leave a comment on YouTube if you're listening to this. Head over and look at the video version. Otherwise, jump on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You'll find us there.
Cool. Thank you. Drink more tea. Goodbye.
Drink more tea. Take care.
So that was episode 11 of Tea in the Dojo, talking about the Dojo Kun. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please check us out on our other social media platforms, and we do try to update them. Until then, drink more tea, and goodbye.